Hello, I'm Fraser Palamara, and today I'm joined by EMVision Medical Devices CEO and Managing Director Scott Kirkland. Scott, before we dive into the company's announcement from last week, can you tell our audience how EMVision aims to improve stroke care?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Fraser. So stroke is a huge global burden. 1 in 4 adults will have one in their lifetime. And unfortunately, most result in some form of permanent disability. There are effective treatments, but they're very time sensitive and they require a determination. Is it a real stroke or not? Or if it is a stroke, is it a bleed or is it a blockage? And treatment pathways can't really be determined in earnest until that determination is made. So whether it's at the patient's bedside with our EMU device, which you may see over my shoulder, or in the field via ambulances with our first responder, which is this device here, backpack unit, we're quite simply seeking to reduce that time to diagnosis and that time to treatment, which we know leads to better outcomes for patients and less burden on the healthcare system.
So as I mentioned, EMVision received a $3 million non-dilutive grant from the Australian government. Could you walk us through how this money will be spent?
Sure. So outcomes for stroke patients in rural, regional and remote Australia are much poorer than their counterparts in the cities. And there can be lots of different reasons for that. A primary one is often the tyranny of distance. There can be kind of healthcare workforce shortages and uneven capabilities in hospitals. I've read previously that there's often only one CT operating 24/7 between Adelaide and all the way up to Darwin. So in that stretch. So there is a huge inequality for outcomes for patients in those settings, unfortunately. And what we're seeking to do with this CRCP grant, and we're running it with partners, Australian Stroke Alliance, Titan Pre-Hospital Innovation and the Rural Support Service with SA Health, is to deploy our EMU bedside brain scanners enabled with telehealth, run by dedicated stroke nurses at a series of regional hospitals in South Australia to demonstrate that we can save time to diagnosis, which ultimately leads to earlier treatment and better outcomes. And that's the kind of data that we want to generate to help support reimbursement initiatives as well as driving adoption for the product.
Scott, you did talk about it briefly there, but what makes EMVision's EMU point-of-care brain scanners stand out in the healthcare sector? What's the unique opportunity here?
Sure. So CT does, to be very clear, CT does a fantastic job. That the key element there being when it's available. And because of its size, its cost, its complexity, they are really generally constrained to the basement of a hospital, right? And they do require specialist operators. The key value proposition for our devices, for both the EMU and the first responder, is point of care, portable. They can be brought to the patient wherever they are, very quick scan time, non-ionizing. So there's no concern there around that radiation profile. And from a price point, we expect to be able to sell our devices at the fraction of a cost of a CT or MRI. And really, we're seeking to fill a gap where those devices may not be available. So everywhere from rural, regional, up to an ICU, to the back of every road and air ambulance.
So finally, Scott, what does EMVision's work for the remainder of this year look like with more than $7 million in grant funding? What's on the agenda for the company?
We're keeping busy. So we've got 6 studies running across our 2 device programs. So our EMU bedside device, we have a pivotal trial, which is well underway, progressing well. We're enrolling at sites like Mayo Clinic, Mount Sinai, Texas Medical Center, Royal Melbourne Hospital, Liverpool Hospital. We have a 6th site coming on very shortly. And that site is designed to get us FDA de novo clearance to begin marketing that EMU device. So it's a diagnostic performance study with plenty of updates as we progress through that. We also have an ongoing continuous innovation study where we are collecting data at multiple hospital sites in Australia to continue to develop new features, algorithm advancements. We're also enrolling not just suspected stroke patients, but patients with traumatic brain injury for the first time. So we have, keen focus to expand our indications for our technology. There's about 15 million strokes globally each year, and there's about 26 million traumatic brain injury events. So we have plans to expand there. And then, of course, this CRCP regional South Australia study that we've talked about, which we're preparing for. And then with our first responder device, we have 3 separate studies, all expected to commence this calendar year. One is with the Royal Flying Doctor Service. We've just received ethics approval. That's kicking off very shortly. Also one with the mobile stroke unit in Melbourne. So this is a truck with a CT scanner in the back. We're putting our device in there. Again, we've just received ethics for that too. That's also kicking off very shortly. And then a standard road ambulance study as well. And so with that body of work, we're showing that our first product, the EMU, which is going down de novo, that our first responder is as good or better than. So we demonstrate substantial equivalence to secure a 510K pathway. So 2 brain scanner products in hospital, pre-hospital, and several studies running, which are obviously major events for an organization like ours.
Well, it's certainly a lot of work in the pipeline, and it's been a pleasure to chat today, Scott. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Pleasure. Thanks, Fraser.
For more ASX news and analysis, subscribe below.